All right. Well, thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank you very much. And we're continuing our study with the sutras, the Lalitavistara Sutra. And before we get started, does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about thus far? We finished chapter 7, the all the parts about the gateways to the light of the Dharma. So we completed that, I think. And tonight we'll start with chapter 5, setting out. So we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. So tonight we'll just do our short prayers. We'll do the short refuge prayer and the four immeasurables, and then the 100-syllable mantra and the Saragati Mati requested sutra. So there's always a lot to talk about. So so we begin on page 5 of our prayer book. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam la, Zhangzhu bardu dagni kapsu chi, dagi jin soki pe sonam gi, drola penshir sangye ju pa sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempar jorchi. Dug now dang da now gi gu dang dra war jorchi. Dug now me pe de wa dang mi dra war jorchi. Ne ring chak dang ni dang dra we dang nam la ne pa jorchi. Om Bodhisattva Samaya, help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind-heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. Om Bodhisattva Samaya Manupalaya Bodhisattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satvaha. Om Bajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Bajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Sutto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satvaha. Om Bajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Bajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Sutto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satvaha. Likewise, be extinguished all enemies to my purpose. Whatever evil forces are in me, be defeated. Do this so that when I am victorious, all pure radiance melts into me, completely purified. Take all this knowledge, food, and drink peacefully, enjoy it, and be satisfied so that all obstacles may be destroyed. Be liberated from all obstacles, all general obstacles. Maras are defeated by this gesture of the Buddha. By reciting this mantra, may all the Maras be purified. As a result, may all the Maras be defeated. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've been talking about the play in full, and we completed the part of the gateways to the light of the Dharma, which was very detailed and a very good study program, to look at this every once in a while and refresh ourselves with it. This next part is chapter 5, setting out. So what this is it's a preparation in Toshita of the Bodhisattva, who remains a Bodhisattva, who is not an incarnate Bodhisattva, but is a heavenly Bodhisattva in Toshita heaven, and it is preparing for his conception into being a human being and ultimate birth and so on. So here is a conversation between the gods and with the Bodhisattva, and there's exchange of praise and so on like that. So I think the best way to approach this is to read through this whole thing in its entirety. It's got a lot of detail. It's got a lot of repetitiveness in terms of some of the praises and things like that. And really, I think it's part of the beauty of it. It really puts you in that space of being into a holy place, and it's all, we could say that it's metaphor, we could say it's mythology, we could say that it's real, from a spiritual point of view, but any of those views are mind views, are conceptual views of what this is. And this is the process that we all go through to be born as a human being. To be born as a bodhisattva, of course, is a much higher elevated mindfulness that is being set for us here in this setting out chapter. So let me see. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we got 7 of us tonight. So is everybody able to read this, to recite this? So if we assign pages, would you be able to handle that? Can everybody do that? Okay, good. All right. So then I'll do this first page. It's a short page. I'll do this. So please take note. Gary, if you will do the next page, okay? And then Kunga, if you will do the page after that. So we're talking about 5.13 to 5.19 would be, Kunga would recite that. Then Bernie, would you recite the page after that, which would be 5.20 down to 5.28. And then Alex, you would do the next page. And I know that some of these verses are split between these 2 pages. So just follow the page turning and we'll just have to, I think that's the best simple way to do this. So Alex, if you start with the page 5.29 to 5.34, and then Zara, can you start on the page that starts 5.52 down to 5.59, and then
I
Debbie.
think we missed a page in there.
What was that?
I think we missed a page.
We missed a page?
Well, it seemed like you went from 534 to 552. Did that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you're right. Okay. So 544. So the order would be this. I'll start, then Gary goes next, then Kunga goes, then Bernie goes, then we just lost Alex. So if he comes back, then he'll pick it up. Then Zara, and then Debbie. And then we have to repeat that again. All right, so we'll go as far as we can with that. But if anybody wants to stop in mid-sentence or mid-verse and talk about something, we could do that. It's okay with me. So, or at least make a note so we can come back to it, if you have a question or a comment about something. But it's a very interesting, so it sets the stage of this great blessing of being in Tushita heaven and preparing oneself to, if I could say, descend into a birth, into a womb, to be born and so on. So anybody have any comments or questions about this before we start then? Okay. All right. So I'll start chapter 5, setting out. Monks, in that way, the Bodhisattva taught this Dharma discourse to the large congregation of gods, instructed them, inspired them, delighted them, and caused them to be receptive. He then said to that assembly of fortunate gods, "Friends, I will now proceed to Zambhavipa. In the past, when I practiced the conduct of a bodhisattva, I attracted sentient beings through the 4 activities of giving, pleasant speech, beneficial activity, and demonstrating consistency in speech and all aims. But friends, I would be acting without gratitude. And it would be inappropriate if I were not now to achieve unexcelled, perfect, complete awakening." Hearing that, the gods of the heavens of joy wept and embraced the feet of the Bodhisattva. They said, "Virtuous one, without you, this heaven of joy will lose its splendor." To this, the Bodhisattva replied to the great retinue of gods, "The Bodhisattva Maitreya will teach you the Dharma." He then took the crown from his own head and placed it on the head of the Bodhisattva Maitreya, saying, "You, virtuous one, shall awaken to perfect and complete Buddhahood after me." This is what this is. Thus it was that the Bodhisattva enthroned the Bodhisattva Maitreya in the heaven of joy. Then he again spoke to the great retinue of gods. "Friends, in what form should I enter the womb of a mother?" Some replied, "As a human in the form of a young Brahmin." But other gods suggested, "In the form of Sakra, or Brahma, or a great king, or Vajravarana, or a Gandharva, or a Kinnara, or a Maharaga, or a Maheshvara, or the moon god, or the sun god, or a Garuda." There was also one of the gods of the Brahma realm present, who was called Uraktaja, having been a sage in his previous life. He had taken rebirth among the gods, where his progress toward unexcelled and perfect. Gary, to you.
Awakening had become irreversible. He now spoke. The priest mantras and the treatises of the Vedas mention the proper form for a bodhisattva to take when descending into the womb of his mother. How should it be? In the glorious form of an excellent great six-tusked elephant covered with golden netting, its head intensely red and very handsome, with glistening, wet cheeks. Priests who are truly learned in the Vedas will recognize such features and will correctly foresee and announce the advent of one of the 32 monks. While the Bodhisattva was still residing in the sublime heaven of joy, he considered the time for his birth. At that time, he manifested 8 omens at the sublime residence of King Suddhodana. What were these 8? The residence was immaculate, since all weeds, stumps, brambles, small pebbles, and gravel had been removed. It was well watered and very clean. It was undisturbed by wind and free from soot and dust. There were no mosquitoes, flies, bees, or snakes. It was covered with flowers, and the area became level, like the palm of a hand. This was the first omen. Flocks of birds came to the palace from the Himalayan mountains and the king of mountain ranges. There were patraguptas, parrots, mynas, cuckoos, swans, curlews, peacocks, wild geese, kunulas, nightingales, pheasants, and many others. The birds had beautiful and delightful wings in many colors and sang in melodious songs. They perched upon the verandas, turrets, doorways, pavilions, and upper terraces of King Suddhodana's sublime residence. The birds were joyful and content, and they each sang happily. This was the second omen. In all of King Suddhodana's delightful parks, woodlands, and gardens, the various trees blossomed and carried fruits of all seasons. This was the third omen. In each of King Suddhodana's lotus ponds and reservoirs, there appeared lotuses the size of cartwheels, each with many trillions of petals. This was the fourth omen. In that sublime residence of King Suddhodana, all the provisions of butter, sesame oil, honey, raw sugar, and sugarcane juice were never depleted and appeared to be full, even though they were used abundantly. This was the fifth omen.
Inside the women's quarters of King Suddhodana, excellent residence, all the instruments such as the great kettle drums, the clay and wooden kettle drums, the flutes, lutes, reed pipes, 3-string lutes, bells, and cymbals suddenly emitted wonderful music by themselves without being played. This was the sixth omen. In the most excellent residence of King Suddhodana, all the containers of different types of precious substances such as gold, silver, jewels, pearls, beryl, shells, crystals, corals, opened their lids and displayed their flawless perfection and abundance. This was the seventh omen. A pure and immaculate light, much brighter than those of the sun and the moon, appeared and produced mental and physical pleasure. This was the eighth omen. Queen Maya bathed and applied perfumes to her body. She ornamented her arms with many bracelets and dressed in the softest and most beautiful garments. Joyful, happy, and rapturous, accompanied and circled by 10,000 women, she went to where King Siddhartha was seated comfortably in the music hall. She seated herself to his right side on the fine, precious throne draped with jeweled latticework, with a smiling and trusting face, free from anger. She spoke to King Siddhartha in these verses. Your Majesty, Master of the earth, good Lord, I pray that you hear me. Your Highness, please grant me a favor. Please listen and rejoice in your heart concerning these wishes on which my mind is set. Lord, out of compassion for all beings, I will adopt the 8 precepts, which include discipline and moral conduct, as well as fasting. Without harming any living creatures and always with pure feelings, I will love others in the same way that I love myself. I have renounced any thievish thoughts and given up attachment and arrogance. Your Majesty, I will not act immorally. I will remain truthful, not slander others, and abandon harsh words. I will never use idle or non-virtuous words. I renounce all anger, aggression, stupidity, and conceit. Renouncing all covetousness, I will be content with my own will. I will act properly and renounce flattery, hypocrisy, and envy. I will travel this path of the 10 virtuous actions. I am joyfully engaged in disciplined conduct. So, sovereign master of men, do not act lustfully because of attraction to me.
Your Majesty, may non-virtue not arise in you for a long time. Please rejoice as I am nearby you in strict discipline. Your Highness, I beseech you, quick, say yes today. Inside the cool pavilion at the top of the palace where the swans roost, on a soft and sweetly scented bed scattered with flowers, I would like to live happily, always surrounded by my female friends. May no male servants, boys, or even common women attend me. May I hear only pleasant and harmonious talk, and may there be nothing unpleasant to hear or see. I ask that you release all those that you held in prisons, and that you endow the poor with wealth. For 1 week, for the sake of people's happiness, please give food, drink, clothing, chariots, palanquins, and horses. May each and every man, woman, and child in the palace be free from quarreling and angry words. May their maids be full of mutual affection, and may they enjoy themselves together like gods in the pleasure groves. May no persecution, beating, or malicious threats take place. May there be no royal retribution or unjust punishment. Lord, please look upon all beings as if upon an only child. Think benevolently and lovingly with a composed mind. When the king heard this speech, he rejoiced and proclaimed, let everything you wish come to pass. Whatever you seek and wish, that request I will grant you. The excellent king commanded his entourage, make honest preparation in the upper quarters of the palace. Decorate them with beautiful flowers and use the best incense and perfumes. Adorn them with parasols, banners, and rows of palm trees. Place on guard 20,000 brave fighting men in armor, brandishing swords, arrows, spears, and lances. Let them guard the quarter where the swans call out melodiously. Let them guard the queen with loving care so that she is not afraid. Bathed, perfumed, well-dressed, and with her arms bejeweled, surrounded by her female attendants like a goddess. Next.
Alex?
Sorry, I don't have a book with me, but I'm listening.
Oh, okay, very good. Zara, then you be next, please. Your microphone is muted.
Accompanied by the pleasant sounds of thousands of cymbals, the queen ascended and rested like a divine maiden. The legs of her bed were embellished with costly divine jewels. It was a pleasing bed bestrewn with flowers. Then she unfastened her tiara of precious jewels like a goddess in the Misraka garden. Monks in the meantime, the gods were gathering. There were four great kings, Sakra, lord of the gods, and the gods of Suyama, Santusita, Sunuramita, and Paranormita Vasavartan. There were also Sarkava, the officer son of Mara, Brahma, the lord of the Saha world, the divine priest Brahmotara, the divine priest Subramra, and Prabhavayuha, Apsavara, Mahesavara, and the gods living in the pure realms of Nistagata in the highest heaven, as well as many hundreds of thousands of others as well. They spoke to one another in these words. Friends, if we were to allow the Bodhisattva to depart alone, without expressing gratitude to him, it would be inappropriate. Friends, who among us all will have the courage to serve the Bodhisattva communion constantly and ceaselessly as he travels to the womb of his mother? Who will serve him as he is in the womb, when he is born, as he grows and plays as a young child? Who will serve him when he is in the female quarters watching the musical performance, and when he renounces his home and is practicing austerities? Who will serve him as he proceeds to the seat of awakening, tames the demons, attains perfect and complete awakening, and turns into the wheel of Dharma? Who will serve him until he demonstrates passing into great parinirvana? Who can keep him company with a kind, affectionate, friendly, loving, and noble attitude? Then they sang these verses. Who among us has the courage to follow joyfully? This being one with such perfect appearance, who would like to increase his merit, splendor, power, and renown. Whoever lives in these divine palaces and wishes to enjoy the divine pleasures of the goddesses and the divine delights, let him serve the one with a face like an immaculate moon. Whoever wishes to enjoy the charming Visraka garden, with a celestial palace, the birthplace of the gods, full of golden hued flowers.
Let him serve the Immaculate Brilliant One. Whoever wishes to frolic together with goddesses in a splendid chariot, or in the pleasure groves carpeted with petals of Mandavara flowers, let him serve this great being. Whoever aspires to be the ruler of heaven free from strife, or to be the Lord of the heaven of joy, someone worthy of worship by all beings, let him serve the one of unlimited renown. Whoever desires to enjoy himself in a beautiful mansion, in the heaven of delighting in emanations, and wants to enjoy all the mentally created illusions, let him serve this one possessing excellent qualities. Whoever is a master over demons, but whose mind has no hatred, who has attained complete mastery of all types of power, who is the master of his senses and has surpassed others, let him go with this benefactor. Similarly, whoever wishes to pass beyond the desire realm and reside in the realm of Brahma, let him serve today the great being, resplendent with the four immeasurables. Whoever longs to take birth among humans in the vast realm of a supreme universal monarch, let him serve the one with abundant merit, the jewel mind, the one who bestows fearlessness and bliss. Whoever wants to be a ruler or the son of a wealthy merchant, rich and happy with great wealth, surrounded by an army able to conquer enemies, let him go with this benefactor. Whoever desires beauty, luxuries, and power, and wishes for fame, courage, and good qualities, and would like to speak agreeably with words that are heeded, let him attend upon that learned Lord who speaks with the voice of Brahma. Whoever desires the divine and human enjoyments, or all the happiness of the three realms of existence,
or the bliss of concentration and the happiness in solitude, let him follow the Dharma Lord. Whoever yearns to abandon attachment and anger and wants to clear away the darkness of the afflictions, let him, with his mind calm, tranquil, and totally at peace, quickly follow the one who has tamed his mind. Whoever wishes for the wisdom of learners, masters, and solitary Buddhas, as well as the wisdom of omniscience, and hopes to roar like a lion through the 10 powers, let him follow the learned one with an ocean of qualities. Whoever desires to close the path to the lower realms and open the path to the fortune of deathlessness and travel on the eightfold path, let him follow the one who has completed all paths. Whoever wishes to make offerings to the thus gone one and listen to the Dharma from that Lord of compassion and attain the qualities of the Sangha, let him follow this ocean of qualities. Whoever hopes to exhaust the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and be free from the shackles of cyclic existence, and enjoy purity equal to limitless space, let him follow this pure being. Whoever wishes to liberate himself as well as others, desiring beauty that is pleasing to all, supreme bodily marks, and the blossoming of qualities, let him attend the learned one who is beautiful to behold. The learned one who wishes for discipline, absorption in knowledge, who wants liberation that is profound, hard to see, and difficult to fathom, let him quickly follow the King of Physicians. Whoever desires many such qualities, and the happiness of existence, as well as nirvana, and wants to utterly perfect all good qualities, let him follow the learned one who masters disciplined conduct.
When they heard these verses, the gods assembled. There were 84,000 gods from the heaven of the 4 kings, 100,000 gods from the heaven of the 33, 100,000 gods from the heaven free from strife, 100,000 gods from the heaven of joy, 100,000 gods from the heaven of delighting in emanations, 100,000 gods from the heaven of making use of others' emanations, 60,000 gods from the realm of Mara, who were born there because of their former virtuous actions, 68,000 gods from the realm of Brahma, and many hundreds of thousands of gods assembled from all the realms up to the highest heaven. Moreover, many hundreds of thousands of gods came together from the east, the south, the west, and the north. The foremost among the gods then spoke these verses to the great assembly of gods. Immortal lords, please listen to these words that express what is on our minds. We give up our sensual enjoyments and the perfect bliss of concentration in order to serve this sublime, pure being as he enters the womb, abides in the womb, and is more. We will make offerings to the great being, so worthy of worship. We shall protect the sage who is well guarded by merit. No one shall cause him any problems through a hostile mind. In songs and with the melodious sounds of cymbals, we will praise the qualities of the one with an ocean of qualities. Whoever hears this will engender the excellent mind of awakening and thus delight all gods and humans. We shall fill the king's palace with flower petals and light the finest incense of black aloe. With that aroma, gods and humans will become very content. We will free them from sickness, fever, and make them happy. We will fill the entire city of Kapilavastu with blossoms of mandarava flowers, beautiful jasmine, and hibiscus, in order to make offerings to him who appears due to virtuous activities. As long as he is in his mother's womb, untainted by the 3 stains, and until he is born in order to bring an end to aging and death, we will serve him devotedly. Our wish is to make offerings to the great intelligent one. It will be a great blessing for gods and humans. To
witness a newborn taking steps 7 to witness a newborn taking 7 steps, to see him received by Sakra and Brahma, and to see the pure being bathed with perfumed water. While he behaves in accord with the world and conquers the affliction of desire inside the woman's quarters, and as he abandons his entire kingdom, throughout that time we will serve him devotedly. When he acquires grass and travels to the seat of awakening, and as he conquers the demons and gains awakening, and is entreated to turn the wheel of the Dharma by a billion Brahma gods, throughout that time we will make vast offerings to the well-gone one. While he tames trillions of beings for the deathless state, performing enlightened activities in the Trilokosium, until he passes into cool and peaceful nirvana. For that long, none of us will abandon the great world-renowned stage. Amongst the goddesses who sport in the desire realm saw the perfection of the Bodhisattva's bodily form and wondered, what is she like? What that maiden who will conceive the sublime and supreme pure being? Filled with curiosity, they gathered the finest, best flowers, incense, lamps, perfumes, garlands, ointments, powders, and cloths. Then, blessed as they were with supernatural powers from the ripening of merit and with divine bodies that are mentally created, they instantaneously disappeared from the celestial palace. By means of their celestial powers, they traveled to Kapilavastu, that sublime city with the 100,000 gardens, and arrived at King Siddhartha's residence, known as the home of the swans. The great mansion that resembled the palaces of the rulers of the gods. The goddesses wore loose gowns well adorned by the splendor of their immaculate merit, and their arms and hands were full of divine ornaments. They saw Queen Maya resting on her fine bed. They pointed her to each other, and hovering in mid-sky, they sang these verses to one another. We goddesses who live in divine abodes saw the attractive body of the Bodhisattva. At that time, we considered, what will the mother of the Bodhisattva be like? Our curiosity aroused, we approached the royal palace with garlands of flowers in our hands.
Bearing aloft flowers as well as ointments, we bowed with folded hands. We beauties with revealing garments stretched out our hands and pointed out Queen Maya resting in her bed, saying, oh, behold the beauty of that human woman. Because of pride, we thought the goddesses had the most attractive bodies. Yet when we saw the body of the king's wife, we saw that her splendor outshines our divine bodies. She will be the mother of the Supreme Being. Full of charm, she is like the Rati herself. Just as a precious jewel rests within a fine vessel, this queen will be such a vessel for the God of gods. From the palms of her hands and the soles of her feet, her attractive limbs surpass the divine. When you look at her, your eyes will not be sated, and she will only thrill your heart and mind more and more. Her attractive face and body shine like the beautiful moon in the sky and blaze like the stainless fire of the sun. Her body shines with an excellent light. The complexion of this queen is resplendent, shining like the purest gold. Her hair is soft, clean, and sweetly scented, black like the excellent bee and arranged in braids. Her eyes are like lotus petals. Her teeth are like stars in the sky. Her waist is curved like a bow, and her hips are ample. Her shoulders are raised, and her joints are smooth. Her thighs and calves are like the trunk of an elephant, and her knees have a shapely form. The palms of her hands and the soles of her feet are smooth and red. Surely she can only be a goddess. Thus they examined her in many ways, tossed flowers, and circumambulated her.
Then, praising the renowned mother of the victorious one, they instantly returned to the divine realm. The four guardians of the four directions, Sakra, the gods free from strife, the gods enjoying emanations, other gods, demigods, Kumbhandas, Raksas, Kanaras, and Maharaga spoke. Go before the Supreme Being, protect him, the best of men. Do not hostile to beings, do not harm to any person. As Queen Maya resided in the palace, they all assembled with their retinues, holding bows and arrows, swords, spears, and weapons. They remained in the middle of the sky, keeping watch. The gods who know the time of passing came joyfully before Queen Maya. They held flowers as well as ointments. With folded hands, they paid homage. Lion of speech, your time is now. Generate compassion and kindness for the entire world. Lord of men, pure being, demonstrate passing away. We pray that you grant the gift of the Dharma. Monks, as the Bodhisattva was about to pass away and take rebirth, many hundreds of thousands of Bodhisattvas who were bound by just one more birth came to him from the east of the sacred abode of the heaven of joy. They approached the Bodhisattva in order to make offerings to him. Likewise, many hundreds of thousands of Bodhisattvas, all of them bound by just one more birth, came from all 10 directions within the sacred abode of the heaven of joy, also approaching the Bodhisattva in order to make offerings to him. There were 8,400,000 goddesses from the heaven of the four great kings who approached the Bodhisattva, making offerings to him, accompanied by music and singing. Similarly, 8,400,000 thousand goddesses, free from each of the realms of the heaven of the 33, the heaven free from strife, the heaven of joy, the heaven of delighting in emanations, and the heaven of making use of other emanations, approached the Bodhisattva, singing songs and playing musical instruments of all types. They made offerings to the Bodhisattva.
At that time, the Bodhisattva had taken his seat on the glorious essence lying by the great palace. His throne had come about through all his merit and was visible to all the gods and nagas. Then, as the Bodhisattvas and many millions of gods, nagas, and yakshas assembled around him, oh, you've got an open mic, John. Sorry. Okay. Then, as the Bodhisattvas and many millions of gods, nagas, and yakshas assembled around him, he began his departure from the sublime realm of the heaven of joy. Once, as he started to move, the Bodhisattva's body began to shine with a brilliant and dazzling light that surpassed any other celestial light. This unprecedented light illuminated all the vast and enormous realms of the great
Trichiliocosm.
Thank you, trichiliocosm. Even the darkest regions of the world, filled with negativity and obscurity, where even the renowned great power and magic ability of the sun and the moon are unable to produce light, colors, or heat, were bathed in light. In those realms, the unfortunate beings normally cannot even see their own hands, but even there, the dazzling light shone. Due to the light, the beings in those realms now recognized one another and remarked, "Listen, friends, other beings have also been born here." Then the whole billion-fold world system shook in 6 ways and exhibited 18 great signs. It began to quiver, tremble, quake, move, make sound, and roar, each in 3 degrees of intensity. The world shook so violently that its center and edge, east and west, as well as north and south, all bounced around, so that when one side was up, the other was down. At that point, one could hear all sorts of pleasant and cheerful sounds. There were sounds that inspired love and made everyone serene. There were inviting and refreshing sounds that were impossible to describe or imitate, agreeable sounds that do not produce fear. At that moment, there was not a single being anywhere that felt hostile, frightened, or anxious. At that moment, even the light of the sun and the moon and the splendor of the gods, such as Chakra, Brahma, and the world protectors, was eclipsed. All beings who were living in the hells, along with those born as animals, and those in the realm of the Lord of Death, became instantaneously free from suffering and filled with every happiness. No being had any painful emotion, such as anger, delusion, envy, jealousy, pride, hypocrisy, arrogance, wrath, malice, or burning anguish. At that moment, all sentient beings felt love for each other, wished each other well, and saw each other as parents and children. Trillions of divine and human musical instruments played sweet sounds without even being touched or played. Hundreds of millions of gods lifted and carried that great mansion using their hands, shoulders, and the crowns of their heads. Hundreds of thousands of goddesses each sang songs. From all around, they praised the Bodhisattva with the sound of their tunes. You previously accumulated virtuous actions.
You have appeared through virtue gathered over a long time. You have purified the mode of all phenomena. Today we bring forth a great offering to you. In the past, for billions of eons, you gave up your dear sons and daughters. This shower of celestial flowers is the fruition of that generosity. Lord, you cut off your own flesh, kind-heartedly exchanging it in the release of a bird. The fruition of that practice of giving is that those in the world of pretas obtained food and drink. In the past, for billions of eons, you preserved unbroken, uncorrupted discipline. By the fruition of the practice of that discipline, Those in the lower realms, without all the freedoms, are purified. In the past, for billions of eons, you cultivated patience as the basis for attaining awakening. The result of your practice of patience is that gods and humans develop loving minds. In the past, for billions of eons, you cultivated supreme and unwavering diligence. The result of your practice of diligence is that your body is beautiful like Mount Meru. In the past, for billions of eons, you trained in concentration to purify the afflictions. The result of your practice of concentration is that beings are not harmed by afflictions. In the past, for billions of eons, you trained in knowledge that destroys the afflictions. The result of your practice of knowledge is that you emit sublime and beautiful light. With the armor of compassion, you have destroyed the afflictions and developed great compassion for all beings. You have attained perfect delight and excellent equanimity. Well gone one, great being, homage to you. You are exalted by the splendor of the light of the lamp of knowledge.
And have cleared all darkness of delusion. Homage to you, able one, who shows the path, the leader, the eye, in the trichilocosm, skilled in the higher knowledge of the basis of the miraculous powers. You see the truth and have trained in the sacred meaning. Having crossed over, you liberate others. Homage to you, the well-gone one who liberates. Skilled in means and higher knowledge, you show a passing away that is devoid of death and rebirth. Although you act harmoniously in accord with the worldly law, you are in no way attracted to the world. Inconceivably, excellent gains come to anyone who merely comes to hear or see you. So how about those who actually listen to the Dharma and develop faith and joy? The entire realm of the heaven of joy is gloomy, but the sun has arisen in Jambudvipa. You will awaken inconceivable trillions of creatures who are asleep due to their afflictions. Today, the palace will be filled with wonders. It will be crowded with trillions of deities. It will resound with the music played by the divine maidens. In the king's mansion, sweet music will be heard. The lady is endowed with supreme beauty, nourished by the brilliance of her merit and virtuous actions. This perfect son of hers will outshine the three worlds with his splendor. The splendorous appearance of this perfect man will henceforth prevent any greed and quarrels among beings in this sublime palace. All shall be lovingly reverential. With the birth in the family of a universal monarch, the royal line will surely prosper. Likewise, the city of Kapilavastu will become prosperous and replete with treasures. Host of yaksas, rakasas, Brahmandas, Guyakas, gods, and asuras, together with their leaders.
Let Kunga finish, please.
All those who stand guard over the Supreme Man will soon attain liberation. Guide whatever merit accumulates. As we praise you with respect and reverence, we dedicate an awe to awakening. Best of men, may we quickly become like you. This concludes the 5th chapter on setting out.
Very good. Thank you all very much. What comments do you have about this? What do you think about this?
Lance, just so I can understand the context of how this is all laid out, chapter 4 was the information on the pathways to practice the Dharma, gateways to the Dharma. Now this is sort of, are we back looping and discussing how he came into existence?
No, now it's preparing to come into existence. So the motivation was the light of the Dharma. So now we're taking it to the next step. Now we're getting ready to do that. And who's going to come and be reborn or be born in the as a pure being in Jambudvipa, which is the continent of our continent, of where this phenomenal nature that we experience takes place.
Okay, I'm going to do some self-study on the sutras, and I'll ask follow-up questions next week. And then this is a naive question, but I want to ask it. Where does the number 84,000 come from? Just from the conceptual, historical part of it?
I don't know exactly, maybe Bernie has a comment on that. Bernie? Your microphone's muted.
I really can't give you the exact story. Really, it's an elaboration on the birth story that was present in the Pali Sutras. And basically, what happened over the years is that, well, this is a particular style of poetry, which consists of taking a story and laying it on thick with different levels of metaphors and such. It's called, what's it called? Kavya poetry. So it's written in
How do you spell that?
I think it's spelled Kavya, Kavya. It's from memory, so I can't be completely sure. It's been a long time. So yeah, there's this particular style where they lay it on really thick with layers of metaphors, and it's like a cake. It's like a wedding cake, basically. You got the cake, and on the top of the cake, there's all sorts of icing and decorations. So the basic story is that Buddha was in his previous incarnation was in the joyful heaven Tushita, and he was reborn to the queen. And they just take that basic story and they've really made it very elaborate here with lots of metaphors and such and so forth. But it's basically the story that's been there of the Buddha's birth ever since the beginning of Buddhism. It's just, they're just laying it on a bit thick right here. So, and they're using it to teach certain moral lessons. In addition, for instance, the vows that the queen takes there's a series of vows that anybody who's done the Nunye practice knows about. And the people can take the vows of a monk or nun for a single day or for a single weekend in order to gain merit. And that's what it seems like what the queen is doing here when she asks the king if she could retire to her quarters and be there and practice the 8 vows. So the queen is basically taking on the vows, temporary vows of a monastic for a period of time, which is in this text is preparing her. And then they go into the all the wonderful things that happened when the Bodhisattva took birth, which is based on his merit from previous lifetimes. And anybody who's studied the different stories of how the Bodhisattva practiced compassion in his previous lifetime is familiar with the references here, like the references. The one story that I remember is that I think there was a king who, a hawk wanted to catch a pigeon in his kingdom, and he taken the vow to protect every living creature in his kingdom. So instead of allowing the hawk to consume the pigeon, he offered the hawk some of the own flesh from his leg, which just symbolizes his compassion for all sentient beings. So that's one of the stories they kind of refer to in this text, and there's a bunch of others. All the stories from the Buddha's previous births. So it's kind of an elaborate reference to standard Buddhist practices of taking the monastic vows for a period of time, and the Buddha's previous lifetimes of practicing moral conduct and virtue and compassion and so on for the sake of all sentient beings. And that's basically what you have in the latter part of this chapter. I don't know, did that answer the question or not?
Yeah, no, that helps. That helps tremendously. The some of the references are so, for me, conceptually outlandish, and I don't mean that in a negative
It's
way.
piling it on pretty thick, isn't it? You know, it's like I
Yeah.
said, it's a wedding cake. It's a wedding cake. And it's the style of poetry and it
All
appeals.
right, well, please don't repeat
Like,
ourselves.
yeah, okay.
Patience is a virtue, Lance.
Patience is a
Bernie,
virtue.
Bernie, thank you.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, so I think, I think Zara was right by saying that this is the kind of thing to read alone by yourself and take a fair amount of time to be able to digest it, see the metaphors that are being used here. It's full of metaphors so it's like if I can use the term, it's like a fairy tale for adults, for practitioners. But how it's real in the sense of purifying oneself and to be able to look at the metaphor about how all these different beings have gone through lives to get to where they are. Somebody's microphone is on and it's kind of feeding back. I think maybe it was Brendan. Thank you. Or maybe it's Bernie. There we go. Thank you. So to be able to like they talk about when you are to be reborn, when you die and you go through the bardos and so on, you're going to be reborn, and they tell you that you have these choices of where you're going to be reborn. And one of the choices is to be a human being, but they say, well, if you can't be a human being and you can be a god, then you should be a god, but don't be any of the other animals or the hell beings or the hungry ghosts. Don't be them, but be a god. But a god, is a desirous being. The way we define God is a desirous being. So here, these gods that are being set here, they're on the path to become like the Bodhisattva, but they're to accompany him in this next life, so that they can see what it is to be a pure being, because the Bodhisattva here is the pure being who has gone through many lives to get to where he is and to be born again and to be, the Universal Monarch for the benefit of all beings. So by reading this and then looking at these words, these strange words, but then cross-referencing them with the glossary, really opens you up to a lot of things that, of what I was just trying to say. So if you want to make a study of this chapter and all these chapters are really great at doing this.
Lance, I had at first the Shabkar book you gave me is actually, to what you just said, is exactly that experience. The appendixes themselves are so full of rich content that connects what I'm reading that it's incredible. Like reading the stuff on like the 9 vehicles, and what you just said about the God realm. Like I was reading that yesterday, in that book. Do you want us just to stick our comments on for chapter 5, or do you want to allow for an organic conversation relative to some of this?
No, I think we should have a conversation.
So just as a technical question for anyone, and I guess maybe for you first, karma, when you're resolved karma, good or bad, the cessation of action, like your need to act, whether it's good or bad, is when you've attained enlightenment. Like just very, I know it's really like broad strokes, but as I'm reading and digesting all this content, I'm starting to get this theme, like the karma, yeah, it's good to do good things and nice things, but the compulsion to even to be kind, like I've got to go do this, just the need to, all that sensation, is that when you're like, okay, I'm here. I'm going back to wherever that cosmic universal place is. I'm enlightened. Is that actually, that's the point of all this. There's no need to take action.
Correct.
That just hit me after 4 years of study. Do you know how much focus I've had in the last several months on tormenting myself over understanding good and bad karma? that point just hit me yesterday when reading Shabkar in the back of it. The cessation of the need to take action is the point. You have no desire to take any good or bad action.
And that's in the Four Noble Truths.
It makes sense, and then it just, when it's within the context, you keep reading it, and it hit me, and trying to understand that practically, like each of us has these day-to-day existence in Western society. Wow, that really hit hard. Like, how do you stop acting, right? Or the impulse to act, I guess, because that's desire. I desire to act. Like, it goes back to the concept of desiring something. Because even trying to do good karma, Lance, correct me if I'm wrong in understanding this, that would then ultimately mean you're not ready yet to let go of your human life. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that hit me real hard yesterday at 6:37 p.m., y'all.
So your intention and your motivation may be to help other beings. And that's
Yeah.
helping you, to go through that spiral. We use that analogy all the time,
Yeah.
and you're getting higher on the spiral, and the rings are getting tighter together, but you're still on the spiral. You're still on the path. You still haven't fully purified yourself yet.
Got it. So meaning there's still a need, in the need to act, whether it's good or bad, there's something you still have to resolve by the desire itself to act.
Yeah, and the point is that if we're going to be a human being and we got all these motivations to do things and so on, and we decide that I really want to be a Bodhisattva, I really want to be a Buddha, I want that kind of freedom, I want to help, I want to be a Bodhisattva and so on. This is how you learn what that means to do that. What else better do you have to do in order to attain that? Do you think you're just going to stop thinking and attain levels of Bodhisattva or Buddha? No, you got to work for it, and it's these kinds of dissertations that are helping us to focus our mind on what it is. We're developing that one-pointed mindfulness.
Lance, and so there are there's soul energy or people or whatever we want to call them that have gone through this process, reached enlightenment, and then insert themselves back into a female's womb to come back into it even after they've gone through the spiral and hit it. That is something we're talking about as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to spiral out, Lance. Scotty, beat me up. Okay.
Somebody else have a comment or question?
Brendan,
Oh God,
I feel like
I gotta say something. The idea of merit and demerit, it keeps continuing until the idea where there's no more self, which is the actor or the recipient of the good karma. When the idea of self falls away, karma falls away because there's nothing good and bad, because there's nothing more left for it to attach to.
Yes. Thank you. Brendan, you wanted to say something?
It's so good to see you all, and I apologize for being late. I just wanted to say that a quick Google search would certainly confirm what Bernie was saying earlier. But this is interesting. One person's opinion, it is known 84,000 is known as the long number. And it's a standard indic reference to a large but non-specific number. Early Buddhist literature is peppered with this value. And somebody says you could think of it as like saying, I've been to that restaurant 1,000,000 times. So it's kind of similar to that. So I just thought that might.
Very good. Thank you. That's a very good point.
Brandon, I thought you were going to say something a little bit more conventional about what we're talking about and link it back to something practical. You really just let me down.
Oh, you want me to be more profound? Oh, I can be more profound. John Burdett is a Buddhist fiction writer. He writes religious Buddhist fiction, which is also crime fiction set in Thailand. And he said, imagine that you're sitting on a veranda, beautiful palm trees around you, and it's kind of misty and raining, and you have no pain, no fear. Everything feels so good, no expectations. and all of a sudden you hear screaming, crying, and you're jolted out of this beautiful existence, and you realize the screaming is you. You're a baby being reborn, and you're out of the bardo, and you're you're coming back into the world. So that's what all of this sutra makes me think of, is just, how amazing things were prior to the rebirth. So there you go, Zara. That's what's on my mind.
That's very good. Thanks. Gunga, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. One of the things that struck me as interesting was in 5.32, and then all the way till you get to 5.51. It's the first line is, "Who among us has the courage to follow joyfully? This being one with such perfect appearance, who would like to increase his merit, splendor, power, and renown?" And then it goes in and tells all these different desires that people might have, kind of starting out with like the basic desire, for splendor, power, renown, then going through divine pleasures and enjoying charming gardens, and and then as it gets towards the end, it's more along the lines of whoever yearns to abandon attachment and anger, whoever wishes for the wisdom of learners, masters, and solitary Buddhas. And then at the end there, whoever wishes to liberate himself as well as others, who wishes for discipline, absorption, and knowledge. So I just thought it was like this giant net, being cast out, and it's trying to gather everyone. Like, no matter what your desire is, following this path could help you to attain that desire. You just don't realize as you move on the path, your desires change to in the end, or wanting to end the suffering of all beings. Your desire, maybe your desire to start out was, I just want to end my own suffering. So I just that was the image I got from that part of the sutra. Just that idea of this big net being casting out everyone who has some type of a desire could become to this program, get some relief, and then as they follow the program, they would their types of desires would be changed or transformed from these maybe very materialistic type desires to these more spiritual type desires. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else, Debbie?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything profound. I mean, our
How does this strike you?
well, there's a lot going on, and our movie nights of the past 2 weeks have been a very good reminder, but also this wonderful experience of looking at Hinduism, the philosophy of that region, and how Buddhism comes up out of that. So that was the world in which these things were created. It's the world in which this text was created. And you see it as, yes, it's a caste-based society. And so, but it also has this very lush, we're taught by monastics most of the time. And so the stuff that we read and we study is pretty stripped down. These original texts, they're really going to sell you on the point that the Buddha is like the most worthy being that ever showed up, because that's the society that comes out of it. And includes your circumstances are based on the merit of eons of rebirths, and the gods and people are very interlinked. You have things like universal monarchs. So that also really comes out there. Again, it's just, it's really cool, but it just has that feeling of one of the things that I think is the most important actually in Indian philosophy is the time scale. you know, the billions of years and the billions of universes have existed. You know, Brahma opens his eyes, a universe is created, you know, and close, and there's another one. And so cosmologically, their view of forever is pretty sophisticated. And so it's nice to sort of, you know, draw that back in, you know, the 84 lock, you know, in India, you know how we have 1,000. Well, they don't have 1,000, they have lock, right? So 1,000 is 1,000. Lock is 10,000, so it's 84 lock. It's their, you know, it's just a measure of numbers that they use, whereas we, you know, use thousands and millions and trillions. And so they're always, you know, talking about these very large numbers because they're talking about, we're trying to figure out everything. That's the context. We're trying to figure out everything and see it as this constant play over and over again. So like I said, I don't know how profound that is, probably not, but I really enjoy this. And it's such a, you know, sutras are such a change, even, you know, that sort of stripped down Heart Sutra. You know, we don't see the whole thing, the Prajnaparamita, but you know, when we read the Heart Sutra, it's again, it has that poetic, and everybody's kind of, you know, the Buddha and Avalokiteshvara and everybody else is having a great time. So that's about it. That's what I got.
Very good. I think that's a good point about the time. I think would you say that in the heavens there's a timelessness to that? Time is relative to the earth or to the phenomenal nature.
Yeah, of that time, of that, yeah, that, you know, it's like a lotus that constantly flowers. It grows and then fades and then it grows again.
Okay. I'd like to ask Alex and I'd like to ask Gary what they think about this. So Gary, could you do you have any points about this?
Well, I'm just taking it all in. I'm trying to connect with the notion of rebirth and progress to nirvana. That's what's been flowing through my head. And connecting it with the notion of karma, that we are basically, as human beings, we're architects of a type. We're architects of our destiny. And that is, although I think we like to stay away from the word concept, that is sort of, that's the vision I have of the path that we're on. I hope that makes some sense, but that's what's been passing through my mind.
Can I qualify that a little bit? You know,
It probably is in desperate need of qualification. So please.
What's the difference between fate and destiny?
Well, that is subject to debate, but let me offer this. I think that we can have, if you keep the word karma in play, we are to some extent architects of our destiny. We determine our direction by our thoughts, by our actions, by our energy that we emanate as we move through our lives. And of course, we're affected by the same that we receive from others. So the winds of human behavior toss us like we're in a boat on an open sea sometimes. But we can affect that with our own energy and our own will and our own actions. And in doing so, impose some effect on our own karma.
Can I suggest another way of looking at this? What you're saying, that our fate is the way in which we are born. We're born fated to this body, to this family, to this existence, and so on. This is our fate as a result of the karmic winds that we've allowed to push us in this direction. And in that way, that those winds and all that are like the architect who has designed this fate. This is your life. I'm responsible for it. I've caused this to happen, and so on, like that. But then there is a destiny that is one of motivations and intentions, and it's like an engineer who has been handed the blueprint from the architect, but now he's got to build it. And he finds, oh, there's all this elaborate stuff, there's all this stuff that this fate has given me, but to engineer that, I gotta change this, I gotta modify that, I gotta invent a new way of making this manifest, and so on. So the destiny becomes like the task of an engineer who has to engineer the phenomenal nature into the destiny of what we become. We may be fated to do this, but we have a destiny that we can use that fate and modify and mold into something that might be greater than that fate itself.
Do you have like a suggested reading on this or an appendix or something, like on what you're talking about, Lance?
I'd have to think about that because, these are the kinds of things. Actually, now that you mention it, what have I read lately? It might have been in that Stilling the Mind book. It might have been in that this came up, but it's something that I've thought about for a long, long time. We are the architects and for our fate, and we engineer to our destiny. So,
Lance, it sounds like you're saying fate is the poker hand of cards you're dealt, and destiny is what you do with them, right? Is that a fair?
how you play the hand?
Yeah.
And whether you're going to bluff or not.
Problem solving.
Problem solving, yes, problem solving, endurance, enduring, all these things, and all that is in these sutras. That's what's so great about that. You're going to see all these elemental things to the way we design our lives and so on. So, this whole chapter 5 is an allegory to us before we were born. Where were you before you were born? Alex, are you with us? Can you make a comment or two?
I would say I agree. It's very valuable for the mind, not only become pure, but have positive kind of positive background, positive environment, and I mean, that's what we were asking. Just hearing, this display, this story, whether it's imaginative, whether it's embellished, or whether it's true in whatever degree, that I mean, it helps eliminate negative thoughts and bring up positive thoughts, and that makes us make it like it's like providing fuel to the car to go in the direction you want to go. Maybe removing obstacles for a car, obstacles from the road, clear on the road. Is that what you were asking?
Well, that's your comment. I don't know what to say about that right now. As you were saying that, it was making me think that the opposite or the duality of this is to say that there's nothing. Nihilism. Maybe an atheistic point of view or something like that. But from atheism, from saying that atheism is a non-spirituality rather than just not a supreme being. It's just that there's no spirit. If I can't hold it, weigh it, and measure it, it doesn't exist. But we were just having a conversation the other day about what are the four great energy that we deal with. There's gravity, there's electromagnetic, there's the strong force and the weak force. And what's the commonality between those four things?
It's the inverse square law.
What's that?
It's the inverse square law. They're structurally so similar that that's why we're always looking for a unified field theory.
Well, how about that they're all invisible?
Oh, that one works too.
They're
But
all invisible. So my point is that a physicist or someone who says, well, there's this world and it's just this world and there's nothing else, would say, well, I can't weigh it, I can't measure it. In physics, they can measure the gravity, they can measure the electromagnetic, they can measure the strong force and the weak force and so on. So why can't that apply to spirituality? Can we know for sure? It is an experience. And if you have that experience, it is a superhuman experience. It's beyond a human, it's a transcendent experience to have that. And once you have that, there's no going back.
No, that's true. Well, a lot of non-trivially, well, first of all, you can feel electricity, but second of all,
But you can't see it. I mean, you see it like lightning or something like that. You can, I guess.
Yeah, you can see its effects, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
Gravity, you see its effects every time you fall.
Sitting here in your chair, you're seeing it.
Right? We're always subject to it. But, sure, there's lots of physicists who are atheists, and they're Christians, but a lot of them are Buddhists. Yeah.
Oh God, I've made this argument so many times in the past. The way I usually put it is people ask me, say, well, there's nothing exists except matter and energy. And I say, okay, the laws of physics, are they matter or are they energy? And then they say, generally, then they follow up with say, oh, the laws of physics don't really exist.
No, they don't. No, they're an extrapolation based on experience.
Then how can you say that they explain anything?
They explain things they have to be, science has to be reproducible. So mostly.
Well, isn't it just come down to a point of view?
Uh,
It's
well,
bec-
well, what do you mean by a point of view? It's
Well, it is coming down to point of view. Like Einstein said, it's all relative. So, and also laws of physics, they sort of like do change. I mean, as a function of time, because well, I mean, like because a lot of them like depending on.
Yeah, well, when people say the laws of physics don't exist, I ask them then, well, do scientists invent the laws of physics or do they discover the laws of physics?
the laws of physics are based on observations. They are not. I mean, yeah, it's
Are they
great.
discovered by observations or are they invented by observations?
What's the difference?
Discovering something means that it existed prior to the discovery. Inventing something means it's something that's new.
Yeah, well, when you look at modern physics, the shape of your experiment determines what you're going to see. So if you're looking at photons, your experimental apparatus will determine whether or not you see the particle.
Sure, but
You,
there's still a law which tells you what's going to happen given the what kind of observation you make, Schrodinger's equation, so it's not like it's arbitrary. It's okay. The point is that scientists don't want to think about philosophical or metaphysical questions. So they just dismiss it all and they say, oh, nothing exists except matter, without realizing that their position is also a philosophical position. And there's no more evidence for their position empirically than any other, because it's a question of philosophy and not a question of empirical fact.
Well,
Well,
actually, it depends what scientist you ask. Like
yeah,
I was taught that in science nothing can be proven. Only things can be proven that are not.
This is falsification, and that's Popper's idea, and that doesn't make. I won't go into why that's a stupid idea, but it is, because all it is just taking a positive and turning it into a negative, but it really doesn't change anything.
well, I mean, I was raised to be a scientist by scientists, and my parents are nothing like what you describe scientists as.
Well, the scientists you meet online who want to argue and tell you, well, the philosophical position is called naturalism, which says the true laws of physics explain everything that can be explained, and everything else is just subjective opinion. And that's a philosophical position. And there are arguments for and against it like any other philosophical position. And I take it no more seriously than I take the position of the average Christian. It's just one philosophy among others. And the only difference is that the so-called scientists, the so-called atheists, refuse to admit that what they have is a philosophical opinion, and they call it science when it's really not.
I wouldn't trust anything that I read on the internet. Personally, I don't know. The debates on the internet, they tend to be very facile and very.
Well, I haven't seen anything more profound than anybody's. Well, I'm sure there are philosophers who give a more profound argument, but your typical scientist does not. And I'm like Diogenes searching with my lamp for an honest man. I just have not found that person. They just have to. Well, anyway, this is the
Well,
thing that I go around
I
all
think
the time with.
Yeah,
I think we have to also like underscore that among scientists there are nihilists who saying whatever is not whatever I don't see in my experiment does not exist. That's like nihilin. But there are others who are saying like our experiments only show us part of the reality. There is always something that we never see because we never have like absolutely perfect, accelerator, absolutely perfect instrument. They're always going to miss something. And
Well, it doesn't really solve them. That really doesn't get to the point, I don't think. The fact that there are some things we still don't know yet.
right.
It's
So
really what they're looking for is
always
more
something.
scientific truths, which is kind of missing the point.
Kunga has a point he'd like to make.
Yeah, so this is a different subject, but I just wanted to hear what people thought about the goddesses coming to visit Lady Siddhartha's mother. What's her?
Queen Maya,
Maya.
Devi.
Is saying things like her thighs and calves are like the trunk of an elephant, and her knees are shapely formed, and there's that long whole page, maybe 2 pages about her beauty. And when I read things like this, I always think of them as using physical beauty as a way to talk about spirituality. Like that whenever people are really beautiful or wearing really beautiful clothes or are surrounded by really beautiful things, we're really just using physical objects as a way to allude to a spiritual state that they've acquired. So I just wanted to pass that on. It's interested what other people thought about that section. Thank you.
Kunga, that's so funny. When we were reading it, I started laughing a little bit about how descriptive that section was. So it's funny. Thank you for also changing the subject. I appreciate it. I couldn't keep up with those 3 little scientific nerds. So anyways, this is more of my speed, so thank you. So are you saying, I want to make sure I summarize what you're saying, clarify, that she looked the way she did because she had in previous lives been virtuous and such, like that she looked with, we'll say, conventionally relatively attractive, with good health and all that because of previous actions or intentionalities before she was born in her current body?
She's the literal vessel.
So I'm not really making any kind of comment on her previous lives. I'm just making a comment that in this type of literature, when they talk about physical beauty, I feel like they're really talking about spiritual progress. That's all I'm gonna say.
Kunga, you're a spiritual politician. That was a real good answer. So, okay, I hadn't thought about it that way. Honestly, I was caught so much by the description in the book about how beautiful she was, and some of the analogies made me chuckle in a more conventional way. So I always appreciate your comments. So I'm going to think about that a little bit. That's a new little thought bubble. So thank you.
Well, it reminds me of the 32 marks of the Buddha, each of which is supposed to be a result of his merit in previous lives. So I don't know, maybe somebody could match up the description of Queen Maya with the description of the 32 marks of a Buddha. And I'm not smart enough to remember what all 32 marks are, but some of them seem quite similar to me. So that's what I got out of that section, is that she, like the Buddha, had, as Kunga said, practiced morality in her previous lives, and what we see in this life is the result of her good karma.
Well, I look at it that there's a fair degree of literary license that's being used in the poetry of this. To be able to convey the majesty, the magnificence of this, the transcendence of this, in even form that, form follows that transcendency and so on. That only these magnificent things would happen in such beautiful people in such a beautiful way and with all this lavishness and so on.
So Kunga, to your point, I think if you've, sorry, Alex, please go ahead.
Oh,
I
was
wanted
just
to say that they are happening all the time. We just not recognizing it, and that's part of what the sutra helps us to do, is to see it. But we could be seeing that every moment. We're just not. Thank you.
And yeah, and also I want to add that, just like Len said, like the truth is in the mind of the beholder, so to speak. Because like think about it, like when you see a chair, right? You tell yourself, oh, here is some level surface I can sit on, and I'll sit on, and I'll feel more or less comfortable. But the truth is, there is no level surface. I mean, it always have some roughness. It always have some inclination. There is no absolute level surface, right? But in our mind, we think, okay, this is something like we tend to idealize to a certain degree things, right? And tell ourselves, oh, this is such and such. So whatever is happening is a reflection of our mind state, basically. Like what do we want and what we are, or what we want to go. So a lot of maybe like in this section of the scripture, I mean, a lot of this could be taken as, here is kind of a mind state of gods, of everybody, of whoever, maybe Buddha, maybe Queen or whoever, Buddha's mother. What are their state of mind, and how is it reflected in things that they perceive? Okay, so and here it is. So it helps us to tune our mind into the same kind of state, even though that it may not be true, but it helps us to, it tells us what is the frame of mind was at that time, basically. I think that's what I want to say. Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
In response to what Kunga was saying, if I can try and paraphrase it, when he was speaking about, can we accept the fact that we have potential, that we have this Buddha nature potential, but do we settle for the doom that we're not going to be able to attain it in this life? Or do we say, well, why can't I be like that? And what's stopping me from being Buddha nature? It's being explained to me, all these different places and all these different scriptures and all these different teachings and practices and so on. It's there. Why can't I do that? Even if I get just a glimpse of it. And then maybe I get another glimpse, and maybe I get another glimpse. In other words, I'm not going to accept the fact that I'm doomed. The only thing that dooms me is my own self. And if I can do away with that, then freedom is just right there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of like overcoming illusion by an illusion. But that illusion help us bring out our true nature. I mean, if you know what I'm getting.
Well, what's the illusion? You saying the illusion that we can be our Buddha nature, that's an illusion?
No, like I mean, the truth maybe we're not going to achieve alignment in this life, but having an aspiration to achieve enlightenment, like as soon as possible, and doing everything for that, may bring us enlightenment, or it may bring us enlightenment in the next life, as soon as we sort of like gain our own self consciousness, whatever it is,
Okay.
right? So like we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, maybe somebody like blows up atomic bomb, hey, here's our life is over, even though we may have all the conditions to achieve enlightenment in this life, right? But it doesn't really matter. What matters is the intention and aspiration, because that will create reality in the end.
Well, I think if we go back to 5.103, which is the last verse of this whole part of the chapter, and it says guide. So I think the guide here is the Bodhisattva. Guide, whatever merit accumulates, as we praise you with respect and reverence. These are the gods talking. We dedicate it all to awakening. We're all trying to liberate. We're all trying to become awakened. Best of men, may we quickly become like you. So this whole chapter, I think, is of the conception. If you're only thinking about the conception of the sperm and the egg coming together, that's got one way of looking at it. But if you look at it from the conception of spiritually, that it's the sperm and the egg coming together with the spirit, those three are coming together. And what is the conception of that? There has to be some kind of an intellectual conception for us to be able to have this conversation and so on. So we're conceiving of what it is to be a bodhisattva, to become a Buddha. And this becomes, as it says here, the best of men, the best of human beings. May we quickly become like you. That we're conceiving of what this is. And then the next step is to set about and to engineer that to happen, to make that happen.
Lance, in the most recent, my most recent growth spurts, in like just going through what I'm going through right now, something profound shifted, and it was when I realized it's like you read these things, and like you always say, you have to experience, you have to taste the fruit yourself. You can read about it, you can try to tell someone. So I finally got interconnectedness at such a profound level again in the last couple weeks about. And it helped me shift my mind thoughts from like my ego popping up in a negative way, like where it wants to be defensive and grab that storyline. So now it's like that person is me, right? And seeing that person as me, then I'm like able to see, oh, they're experiencing selfishness right now. They're experiencing it and I see that as mine, right? I see that as the same thing I'm feeling. And it has profoundly shifted everything for me in the last couple weeks when I'm going out into the field of samsara. The field of suffering, I don't have, my aversive thoughts have just started to very easily just lift. Like I'm like, it's been beautiful. I don't know if that's something that resonates with anyone else, but just understanding like we're all kind of, it's all like the same. And once you understand, and I know that, comes down to some of the core things, concepts we talk about, but it just really getting it experientially, like when you see someone else's car accident, that might as well be your car accident, right? Or someone has just fallen on their bag of groceries, dropped, that might as well have been yours. Everything shifted. It's weird.
Very good. Yes. Brenda, do you want to say something?
Zara, you sound like Ram Dass, and that's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. So that's
We're running out of time, but I want to direct you to another stanza in here. It's stanza 5.94. 5.94. So it says, skilled in the higher knowledge of the four bases of miraculous powers, you see the truth and have trained in the sacred meaning. Having crossed over, you liberate others. Homage to you, the well-gone one who liberates. So this is the gods again speaking to the Bodhisattva who is about to take birth as Buddha. And giving him this praise. And the most interesting thing about this, though, is the four bases, or the bases of miraculous powers. So you can look this up in the glossary. This is one of the phrases that appear in the glossary. It's G63. But the four bases of miraculous powers are this: determination, discernment, diligent, and meditative concentration.
So Milarepa had this, right?
Sure.
Yeah, Shabkar also possessed this.
Yeah, you see it in so many things. You begin to recognize it in so many things. The question is, can you recognize it in yourself and cultivate it? Because you want to have miraculous power. This is how you do that.
Do you recognize it in yourself, Lance?
Of course.
Oh, okay. No, I'm asking it I'm curious. I'm asking how you experience it.
This is no time for false pride. Of course.
This is being recorded, everyone. Oh, I love that confidence. You're speaking confidently. Okay.
Or no, I said it wrong. False humility.
Brendan, you're up. The ball
Talking
goes to
about
Brendan.
scientists today. I think
Alex, can you lean into your microphone because it's a little bit weak?
yes. I mean, if you think about like just ability to think scientifically is almost like superhuman thing, because like it took many thousand, maybe 100,000 years for humans to come to like scientific method of thinking. And so it is a very much developed, acquired quality. It's not just given to you when you're born. It's something that you really have to work hard at. So, and yeah, I mean, this is something we as an example of superhuman power that we can rather easily, these days we can rather easily achieve for most people, I think. But it didn't used to be that way a long time ago. People had all kind of delusions and all kind of like superstitions and all things, and they creating all kind of stories and believe in them.
Well, I remember back many years ago when I was going to the Aquarian University of Maryland to take some classes in occult science. And they explained, that we all started at this spiritual nature and everything was one. But then through the passage of time and so on, things have devolved to the nadir. So it's not defined, where the nadir is. I like to think that we're in the nadir, we've just passed the nadir, but then there is this evolution back to that spirituality. And this cycle of time, I don't remember the exact number. Maybe it was 84,000 years. Maybe it was 26,000 years or something like that. But they were giving it some kind of mental, reference point to be able to say, at one time we were all spirit, but then we've devolved, and then there's the evolution back to spirit, that we recognize that what we did was just degrade ourselves, humiliate ourselves, and so on, and we have to change our direction back to the spirituality.
And that's another part of the story. I guess we can take it that way. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's more full story.
Lance, how are we, just so I can understand, because I know we have the special empowerment this weekend. For chapter 5, you want us just to read it. Now, will we be doing the studies and the small sections like we did for chapter 4?
I think we can answer questions, but I think that it really requires reading this 2, 3, 4 times, taking notes, cross-referencing with the glossary. I think it's an independent study thing. But if you want to have a conversation about it, either in a group form like this or one-on-one, we could do that. Or maybe, one-on-one, maybe it can be, you and somebody else. It doesn't have to be me. But I'm just making the point that we really need to get a more of a visceral understanding, experience of what's being conveyed here. And that's a lonely process of reading this by yourself for a few hours and making the commitment to do that.
I don't think it's lonely. Actually, a couple years ago I would have. Now I read Shabkar as my bedtime story. So your recommendation is we read this a few times in the state of joy, and then
Take notes and try and organize it. Say, well, what's being said in this section? Then it shifts to something else. Well, what's being said in this section? Take it apart and put it back together again.
for next Monday, do you want us to be prepared to dive more a little bit and see if anyone had notes, or do you want us
I'll
to?
be happy to if that's what you want to talk about, and if not, we'll go to chapter 6, entering the womb, which is more provocative than this.
Oh, I can tell by the title. Lance, as you dive in, the sequence unfolds. It's like Bernie said, it's an adult theater show.
My whole point is to introduce everybody to these things,
Yeah.
and then to develop your own speed and method in which you take this in and begin to digest it.
You want us to self-study.
I'm just trying to, self-study is, that's where the changes happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's my new activity is spiritual reading. Actually, I'm obsessed with it, but in a good way, in a healthy way. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what your best recommendation was for consumption. Okay.
I mean, doing what we did tonight, wasn't this very provocative? Reading it and then having this discussion about it. Not that any great conclusions had to be drawn, but it was provocative, wasn't it? It's thought-provoking.
It's very thought-provoking. I'm starting to read over from chapter 1, actually, starting from 1. And so I'm doing what you're saying, basically, your recommendation.
I know we've only got like 30 seconds to talk, but Konga and Zari, you've been talking about the aspects of Maya, the major and minor marks. This is, I don't know if you can see it, maybe not, Kumari, Kumari. I don't know if you've heard of these girls. There are 3 in Nepal. There are 3 living goddesses, and they are selected and they serve until they hit menarche, their first period. But they're selected using that same sort of list, limbs like it would develop, et cetera, et cetera. If you look them up, there is a very good film, which I think was just called Living Goddess. That may be on YouTube. So if you want to look at, it's that list of it seems to be a Hindu thing. It seems to just be something that Buddhism adopted. So that's all I have to say.
You're saying the 32 marks that was written in the sutras we just read, like the reference?
In a lot of texts, in sutras and in commentaries, and in our, a lot of our pujas, a lot of our pujas, we talk about that, major and minor signs of, a little hair world there. That is just something that's built into the culture, that they're looking for things to think that is helping inform the sutra. That's all.
If you're interested in the major and minor marks of the Buddha, you can go to the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, pages 454 to 456. And the major marks and the minor marks are all listed there. And that's a worthwhile thing to do. You check them off, see which ones you have, and which ones you wish you had. It doesn't really matter, So you've got all these tools.
Do I have a bump on top of my head? Do you sneeze? No.
We always thought it's a spiritual bump. You got that pointed head.
That curl of hair between my eyebrows?
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. Not
The
yet.
webbed feet.
Oh yeah, that's the funny look. Webbed fingers and feet. That's one of the funny
Yeah.
ones. Yeah. Somebody said that these aren't really physical webs. They're sort of like astral or etheric webs. Somebody told me that, but I don't know.
It's all
Just
metaphor.
Etheric energy or something like that.
It's all metaphor.
Who knows? Who knows?
All right, well, unless somebody has anything last to say, we should recite our closing prayers and dedication prayers. Just a short decorma prayer on page 35 of our red book. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, and all the other great masters, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, ah, om. Om, ah, om. Om, ah, om. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you.
Lance, for this weekend's retreat, how does, just because I've never done it on Zoom, how does it work? Like, is it like 10 to 12 and then a lunch break and then an afternoon session? Is that how it works?
No, it's on the flyer. Didn't you get the flyer?
I saw it's 10 to 5, 10 to 5, and 2 to 5, but the weekends
Oh, I didn't have the lunch break in there? Oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
that's
there'll
okay.
be a 2-hour lunch break at 12
Got it.
noon.
Okay, I just was trying to understand it. I figured as such, I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Yeah, Friday, there's no lunch break.
Right.
There'll be a short break, like a tea break.
Okay, cool. And all
Okay?
right, thank you. Thank you. I hope to see other people on Zoom if not.
Wonderful. I hope to see you too, and you'll enjoy it very much, I'm sure.
I will.
If
Thank
you all
you
can
all.
make it, it'll be great if you can join us in person. If not, Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Cherry bye bye. Thank you.